just get an attendance of Kate Bauer Burke,
Here.
John Dykstra,
Here.
Joanne Guston,
Here.
Jim Overhill,
Here.
Carol Sherman,
Here.
Jennifer Wasserman,
Here.
Mike Weston,
Here.
and I'm here. There are all 8 members present. We have a short agenda this evening, but we do have one discussion that may take a little bit of time. Let's do the minutes. Carol sent around the minutes from our August 31st meeting. Can I have a motion to approve unless there are changes?
I move that we approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
Presented.
Ready? Kate,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Joanne,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Carol,
Aye.
Jennifer,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
and I vote aye. All right. Our usual practice is to open the meeting to the public for any questions or issues that are not on the agenda. So, David, do we have people in attendance? Okay, well, we'll wait a half a minute and see whether anybody has their hand up and has an issue that they want to talk about. If not, we'll just go on to the agenda. Okay. The first item is the issue of the dune grass at the west end, and Carol had emailed us photographs of the kayaks that are in there. I know, Carol, you wrote a letter to Rachel Carson.
I called them several times, left voicemails several times. I recently sent 2 emails and got them back for inappropriate email address, so I have not made any contact with them. I will keep trying. Zach Oster guy was the name that was given to me, who was the, I don't know, the one for ordinance approval and things like that. But I'm thinking that I'll just go try somebody else. I have had no response whatsoever. But I did send you all pictures of the west end of kayaks this summer, kayaks this winter. And one of the pictures, the last one, shows you how much of the dune grass has been removed because of the kayaks, which is probably 25 feet by 25 feet by 2 feet deep. And since I don't know how to put it on Zoom, I'll hold it up for everybody. This is this summer. Okay?
Yep.
Up a little higher, Carol.
I'm sorry. Yeah, tell me how to do it. I'm blind to it.
Just a little higher. Up. There you go. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that works.
Okay? This is this winter.
Upside down, I think.
No, that's a,
Oh, really?
and the bottom one shows how much
Oh, there you go.
grass has been eliminated.
So there's still 4 or 5 kayaks left hanging around.
Yep.
The problem is in terms of removing them, is that one, it may be Rachel Carson property, and 2, the town doesn't want to get into the practice of removing equipment that's on the beach, because then they have to store it. They have to try and find out who owns it. It would present somewhat of a nightmare to the town to confiscate. But I don't know, Mike, do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I think Lori had said, and we had all agreed that we got no way with, what are you going to do? Take them and where you going to put them? And the the only suggestion I have is that if the town would allow the beach committee to take them and sell them,
Yeah.
put them up, I mean, that's the only suggestion I would, if it's legal to do it.
Has anybody put a note on them and said anything like you have? Okay, Carol, so what's the note? What's the note?
The police did.
Oh, what,
Did.
and what did the note say?
Well, it's their tag. Remember, Chief Sanford has these tags that he put on, and he did tag them. He tagged all of them. And some
Before our last meeting, you remember him talking about that?
he had tagged them. Some are removed, and these are what's left.
Does it give us I forget what the tag says. Does it give us permission to remove the kayaks if they're not removed in a certain amount of time? It's not our property. That was somehow we've got to get in touch with the Rachel Carson people because we don't have an authority to remove anything from that property.
Well, I think most, from what Bill Yonder told me, that 30 feet of it was a public right of way, and I think that's right, based on what but I'd have to check with the town. But
Yeah, I think that's the way to do it is, it's one thing for somebody to say it, and he's a pretty good source. He's a pretty good source. But I think what we need to do is find out legally where it is.
I agree.
The other problem is I don't know what authority we have to confiscate. I don't believe there's any ordinance that allows us to confiscate it.
It's private property, so we have to find out what Rachel Carson, what the representatives from them prefer. I mean, we can't just go on private property and take stuff off.
Well, let's suppose it was on town property.
In fact, we have 4 of them on trust property. Paul and I removed the kayak racks on Sunday, and there are 4 kayaks abandoned there. So we have 4 that are now on trust property. Those are on your private property. I believe you can remove those.
Any chance
It would be the trust removing them or the town removing them? It's your property. That's not with the trust. That's an ask. If I had somebody leave 4 kayaks on my property, my own property here, I'd remove them. That's what I
And
would do.
in addition, if they're potentially, now that they're not tied up to a stationary rack, they could be thrown all around into the dune grass.
No, they will be thrown all around. And dangerous in a storm. So I really,
Maybe fall with an environmental protection aspect to say nothing. I would think perhaps the trust might be interested in ameliorating the situation somehow by removing them.
it would be more appropriate for the town to remove them. Town property. It's not more appropriate for the town to remove them.
Mike, let's suppose it was town property, and let's, for the sake of argument, the 5 kayaks that are on the west end, let's assume that is town beach property. What authority does the town have to remove them?
You'd have to ask the chief, and you'd have to have Lori. I'm not an expert on that, but I know on private property, if people have encroached on your property, you can remove whatever is left there. You know that too. You're a lawyer. You know that.
You have a executive session on Thursday on your agenda of the selectmen. Is there any chance of asking Amy at that point, or having Lori separately ask whether what authority the town has, assuming it's on town property?
I don't believe that's something that we can discuss in executive session.
Okay.
But I'm not the authority on that. I'm just saying there are only certain things that we can discuss in executive session, and I'm not sure if that's one of them. starts, just could you please ask her before the meeting starts?
Sure.
One way or the other, either in your executive session, that would be appropriate, or having Lori have a discussion with Amy.
Why don't we just call somebody and say, what's the problem? What's the issue? Why do we need an executive session?
No, no. It's just that I know that Amy is going to be here on Thursday, or you're going to have a Zoom meeting with her. And
But I don't think it's I think it's a well-known, whatever the ordinance is, we do it, whatever it is.
It seems like we have, I mean, we're saying the hypothetical of this being town property, but I think we really have two issues of where we're seeing kayaks left. Either more likely, as in the case of the ones at the west end, are not on town property unless it's in some town right of way. It's probably Rachel Carson, and then we have the issue at the ones in the center, the Proctor area. It's definitely on Conservation Trust land. So I think what I'm hearing is an issue not so much of this hypothetical, which really I don't think is going to help us that much getting an answer to that. I think the question here is, can the town, if requested by a private property owner, remove property?
It's not a case of if, it's a case if they want to. So I will ask the question. I will ask the question, but I don't think it's a town problem. That would be my opinion.
You mean you think it's not a town problem to deal with, or you think it's the
I
town?
think it's not a town problem to deal with it. I think it's the property owner's problem.
Even on the right of way?
If we know that it's not a town right away, if we know that, then that's a different situation.
that's the one I'm asking Mike. And in terms of the Conservation Trust, I suspect it's them, not the town, to remove the kayaks.
That's correct. Do we know, Carol, that there is a right of way there?
Yes.
Okay. If it's on town right away, then I'm sure we have the authority to remove it.
I know it's the right of way. How wide the right of way is, I do not know.
Sure.
I'd go find out. Where would I find out? I'll look into that.
It seems to me that the two things that need to be done is we need to get in touch with Rachel Carson, see exactly where their line is, period. And John, if you can figure out if the Conservation Trust has any interest in removing that, or if they wish to ignore it. I think those two questions need to be answered before we go any further with what if.
So let me be clear then. So what we're saying, even though we as a committee know that having kayaks left on the beach is dangerous to property and to our sand dunes, no matter where those sand dunes are, the kayak could wash from the private beach down and then onto the trust property or something. So what we're saying as a group is that if someone leaves a kayak, the only thing we're going to do is approach the owner on whose land that kayak ended up. May not even be theirs, but it ended up there. We're saying, you've got to go remove that and take any BS you might get from the people that own it. You've got to remove that because it's on your property.
Why wouldn't the trust want to remove them?
I'm asking the question, Paul. I'm sorry, Mike, don't ask me a different question. So
My answer is, why wouldn't the trust want to? They should remove it. Why wouldn't they want to?
that's an excellent question. And first, would you please answer mine? Or what were we saying to people that if a kayak washes in front of somebody's property, we're going to say
that it was washed there.
that you've got to remove that kayak. Is that our position?
John, we can ask them, we can't require them.
Exactly. But we're going to ask them, but we're not going to take any action to remove that. We're not.
We don't have any authority to take any action. We're an advisory committee.
Good. So we're not going to ask the town to remove a derelict kayak.
We will.
I'll ask.
A step at a time.
What the answer's going to be.
Well, I was saying that we weren't going to ask, so that's great. We'll ask if the town would be willing, with the property owner's permission, to remove a kayak. That's
Not on the trust property.
Not
why not on the trust property. We'll give you permission to remove it.
No, I think what will happen is the town will probably say, and I'm not speaking for them, I would say, the trust, I would say, you remove them.
Well, why don't you see what they would, because again, this could wash up in front of anybody's property.
Or they could have just been left there
And
because
the town is not willing to remove them, and that's what's up. I would think that'd be a reasonable thing for the town to do, with the owner's permission.
Let's let Mike ask the question, and we can address it after that. John, if there is a concern that a safety issue, that in the first instance the trust has the right, since it's their property, to remove the kayaks, and maybe sooner rather than later. But we'll see. I know the town doesn't want to get into the business of confiscating property and storing it, and the obligation to try and find out who owns it. And it's just a nightmare that the town does not want to get into.
That would seem to me they don't need to get into any of that nightmare. There's a difference if the town takes it because the owner said please do it, and they destroy it. They don't confiscate, don't do anything, because that's what the owner's going to do.
You're dealing with two owners here, John. You're dealing with the owner of the property, who I would think has the perfect right to say, somebody take this off my property.
Exactly.
And then you also have the issue of who owns the kayak and was derelict in leaving it there. And do they have any rights in this? I mean, my argument would be, no, if it means we have to put added to our multiple signs, the fact that anything left on the beach after a certain date will be confiscated and destroyed or whatever. That maybe that's putting people on notice. But right now, if somebody has left a kayak there for months now, I don't see any reason that they really should care, or we should be, the town or anybody should be in the business of trying to track them down.
Of course, we don't know. They might have just left it there last week, so that's a little bit of a problem. So,
Or it might have been there all year. You know?
My second concern with the kayaks is that it has removed so much of the dune grass, that what are we going to do about it next summer?
Right.
We had a suggestion of, yeah, I mean, obviously you have to talk to Rachel Carson, but the suggestion was to put a rack
Yes.
similar to what's on the trust property at West End.
And the other possibility is, can we, on the town property right of way, stake it?
Stake it, that's a good idea, and I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, I mean, if we know where the property line is between the town right of way and Rachel Carson, then we can run a line of stakes with fine. That seems to be pretty effective this year at other parts of the beach.
I think that's a really good idea, Jen, because I've looked about, Richard, where to put a rack, and this part of the West End, as you know, floods in high tide, or maybe you don't, but the water comes up, goes all the way around, and goes into the street. And by the way, the worst thing that could happen is by breaking down the dunes, the river decides that it's going to go behind our houses instead of in front of our houses. It is really, I believe, I'm not a specialist, but I've seen the river change its course, and that would be a disastrous thing. I think stake and twine is a good idea, because I couldn't find a place to put the rack. I think I like that idea a lot.
Carol, if you do get in touch with Rachel Carson, well, maybe you could ask them whether they have an objection or give us permission to stake any part of it that's their property.
That's a good idea too.
Carol, I'll find out right away.
Carol, when you call them the next time, tell me I have a gift for them. They'll return the call.
I tried to be as nice as I know.
A free canoe for them or something or other.
I can see about 10 new canoes we can give them.
There you go. Yep. Thank you, Mike. You can help me find out where the line is.
Yeah, I will. Let me find out if you're talking from the road, or you're talking about the right of way walking down.
Right of way walking down to the beach.
Down, okay, yeah, okay. I know which one you mean, yeah.
You're not saying the staking is going to mitigate the need for a rack, are you?
No, but it's going to outline where people should not be thinking about dumping kayaks.
Good. I misunderstood what Carol was saying.
Well, it may, because I can show you in the pictures, which is I don't know who describe to us how a dune grass grows, but you have the dune grass and then you have where you've lost it. Then these different bushes grow up first and then the dune grass grows up to those bushes. I can show you where the bushes have started to grow and where the dune grass should grow up to. And I'm going to show you the picture again. I'm going to circle a bush. Hang on. And I think we can use Jen's idea and stake that. Tell me how I did.
I got the bush.
We can,
Well, it's a little higher, Carol.
A little bit higher, and you got the
That's it.
bush. Got it. But that's still, you're still going to need a rack somewhere. Even if you stake that, people are going to have kayaks, so they're going to need to put them somewhere.
So put the rack down closer to the water.
Well, we got to figure out where we're going to look at it, but it still needs a rack. Is my
Okay.
point. Staking is not going to
Fine
make
with
it a
that.
rack.
I'm fine with that.
Now, how is this different from you're not supposed to have kayaks on the beach overnight?
I know.
How is it different?
It's not my first choice, but it's better than.
Well, I mean, do we have a rule and we got to enforce it? Or do we not have a rule?
Well, it's Rachel Carson's property. They would have to enforce it.
Well, I guess we
I
do
think we
that.
can find out it's our property, but I may, I don't know yet.
We'll find out. We'll find out.
Okay, I think we've beaten this enough. I mean, we have some questions to get answers to, and then we hopefully we'll have a solution.
Richard, I don't see any place, since we've been talking about dunes and dune grass and staking, et cetera, and I'm not sure I see someplace else specifically on the agenda to talk about the experience of doing it this year. And I'd just like to, either I or Jen, I think this is a time for us to give a brief summary of what happened and what didn't happen well, what did work well, and where we need help. I mean, is this okay?
Sure, absolutely.
The dune grass, we staked the dune pretty much all through the east end of the beach. Very cooperatively from the owners, although we didn't get specific help from the owners, but we got permission. It was a big effort, and that was just one half of the beach. I think, it was mostly done by committee members with some great help from community members. I mentioned Paul Hogan, Paul Lakin, Greg Burns. If I've forgotten somebody, Janet DiConstanzo. But it was really at least a 2-day job. It's a lot of work. And then we came to October, and we decided we needed to remove the stakes and the twine for the winter. So that was another multiple hours job of, we had fewer people, and it took quite a while, and it was a lot of physical labor. So I think from what we're talking, we had a good interaction too with the Audubon Society, because they do, staking of any areas where plover nests are. And I think the effort to stake the dune grass combined with the kayak racks and a few other things we've done have been a big benefit for helping the dune grass grow back and giving us further protections that we'll need. So I guess I think it's something we should continue next year. We basically saved all the stakes from this year. Hopefully they're all going to work again, be viable next year. I'll have to get new twine next year. We couldn't figure out how to save the twine, but that was just going to be too insane. But we're going to need manpower next year, and I think part of it is we certainly need to do a better job recruiting people to do it, set out like we used to do with the beach cleanup days, setting certain times that we're going to do it, and we really need a pretty good set of manpower to help. And it sounds like we may be looking at, we didn't do any of the West End this year because most of the area that was not seawall was already staked by the Audubon Society. So it sounds to me from listening to this, and particularly if we get permission from Rachel Carson, there will be additional areas that need to be staked at the West End. So I guess I'm just saying, I think it was a wonderful job that everybody did. I think it's shown great benefit to the beach, and I think it's something that needs to continue happening going forward. But we really need to make more of it. This is one of those, this may be spearheaded by the Natural Resources Committee of the BAC, but this is a classic example of a operation that needs volunteers who are not committee members per se.
Yeah, I've already spoken to a number of people just that I know around who said, oh gosh, you could have called me, I would help. So I think, I don't think it will be hard to get some more people to help. We just figure it out next year.
Yeah. Okay.
I think going forward too, guys, the local high school is always looking for opportunities to do service time. Boy Scout troops, Girl Scout troops, always looking. They spend a lot of time out on Goat Island doing a lot of cleanup and a lot of stuff. I know that they would be willing to help with this as well.
That's brilliant, because we just need the muscle power.
Yep. Yep.
I'm happy to stand back and tell people where to sleep. I'm done with pounding
I
stakes.
think the average age of everybody cleaning up the stage this year was a little old.
So let's rope in, let's rope in the high school kids, or junior high, who cares? But I think they're going to need some notice. So when you set the day for this, and it needs to, of course, be before school gets out, if school ever gets in, before it gets out, to let everyone know about that.
Yeah, and Jen, we can combine the kayak racks with that, because that's quite an effort as well to get those in, so we can do that.
Yeah.
They're all related.
And maybe combine it with a sort of beach cleanup day too. We do something like that in the spring, and it could be one big long beach fest. And using the kids, it's outdoor activity. It's pretty safe, even no matter what status we're in with COVID by next summer or spring. I think that's a great, brilliant idea.
Mike, you wanted to say something?
I just questioned, my only question was, why are we taking the stakes and twine down in the winter?
Because
It won't be there in the spring.
yeah,
A lot of them get washed away in the winter.
Do they?
Yeah.
Not all of them, but I know a fair number will.
The racks were already buried when we were pulling them out. The sand moves a lot.
Yeah, okay. So I want to know.
Okay, let's move on to the next item, which is a beach report. And there isn't much. We talked about it last time, and Lori gave a report. But let me give you what I have, which is sort of the end of season report. Violations, parking 885. Dog, and these are violations, and the number is 38, and these are warnings, not summonses, and it's up from 19 the year before. So there have been more warnings this year than in previous years. 2 fireworks and beach fire complaints. There was 1, and there was an actual citation of 1 owner for a violation of the dog ordinance. And in terms of the tagging that the police did, there were 76 tags for storage of equipment that impeded walking, and then a series of others categories where they actually did tagging. And in terms of the parking, there was the total amount that the dollar amount that the town collected was $157,000, and there were a total of 77,676 stickers that were sold. There were 2,750 for residents, so that's Goose Rocks, Kennebunkport total, and those are, as we know, $5 a piece. But there were 4,600 daily, 166 weekly, and 114 seasonal. The general store sold just daily stickers, and they sold 2,200
alcohol sales, of course. Okay.
Right.
Wow, okay.
How does that compare that dollar number to last year, the 150K?
I don't know the answer to that. I suspect it's probably comparable.
It was down $40,000.
That's what I would have thought.
Down 40,000.
COVID hit, yeah. That's real money.
Well, we had some shut for a while, and then we had restricted parking.
Well, you bet. You bet. That's real money.
That number is greater than what is allocated to us in our annual budget, right?
We don't have an annual budget.
I know that, but it's greater than we spend.
Oh,
Gotcha, yes.
oh, yes, absolutely, but it's not our money, it's town money.
I know that.
There,
Responsible.
there is there is a fund that was created because of the beach use agreement and the beach use ordinance. But that money is not money that we can just spend as we wish. We have
Unless we want to resurface our own roads. I mean,
I would
there's
love
a lot that town does there.
no, I mean, we can request money, and it goes before the board of selectmen, and candidly, in any of the requests, none of the requests have been denied during the 7.5 years that the beach advisory committee has been in existence.
But I somewhat agree with Jim. I think it's an interesting statistic to know how much income, revenue, the beach in a sense generates for the town, putting aside things like property taxes, etc., or putting aside things like how much business to restaurants and shops come from beach residents and beach visitors. It's just something that I think is good to have in the back of our minds.
Yeah, and we also need to know what the costs are, because there's some real costs to keeping the cost, the COS on there, other costs associated with the beach. So
Yeah,
that's
and I
one
think
side of it.
sometimes, there may be
One side of it.
requests that somebody look at the relative costs of enforcement and other issues versus revenue generated.
We change the pickup cycle for trash just twice a week. There's some real costs that come in. Or once every week. Sorry, once every week.
Yeah.
Instead of
And
every 2 weeks.
people are leaving cottages and turning over. Yeah.
Exactly, but there's extra costs to running the beach. Yeah.
Which includes garbage pickup along Kings Highway and the speed bumps that we.
Just
Yeah, there are all kinds of costs that the town expends for the beach. All right. The next item is a discussion of signs at Goose Rock's Beach. I know that Kate, you had an email this afternoon, which with some pictures of the signs and some things to consider in terms of eliminating some signs, changing them, what have you.
Well, this is all sort of an effort to kind of, as we are doing with other aspects, saying, is it time to look at some things that have been in existence at the beach done a certain way for a number of years? Given, as we're all seeing, the beach itself is changing, from its use is intensifying. We've seen issues about enforcement and violations of this, that, and the other. So again, a reason to look at the signage and say, are we getting our messages across to people, which is sort of a first point. When you want to look at, are people complying? Well, first you have to make sure that they're getting the message in a way that's user-friendly. And secondly, then, if they're still not complying, is there just a flat-out enforcement issue? But so, Carol and I, and Joanne, but particularly Carol and I, walking up and down the beach area, stopped at each of the major access points to the beach, and looked at, and those are pictures that I've, actually, I have to give Jim credit on basically most of these pictures, of each of the access points. And as you can see, I mean, they're kind of small pictures, but if you look at them, for example, the west end, there are 8 different signs as you enter the west end access to the beach.
Hey, you're muted.
Should I share my screen and show these signs for the public? I don't know how we fun of it.
Am I unmuted now?
No, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, if you know how to do that, John.
Can I do that, David?
Yeah.
I give you permission, John.
Thank you.
What we found in looking, and maybe John can start, the upper left is the west end, where if you count, a little tiny sign that's over by the pond and 3 or 4 signs right in front of you, and then a little bit farther down, there's another 3 at least signs. So you've got a total of 8 signs there. Some of them, there are 2 signs that are pretty consistent throughout all of the entrances. One is the welcome sign, the big welcome sign that so many people on the committee worked so hard on a number of years ago, and came up with a beautiful product. But whether it's the most effective nowadays, I don't know. The other is the water quality sign, which we've talked about redoing too. But there are signs at the west end about clamming, and certainly there are some extra signs this year that relate to COVID, the social distancing, etc. But still, we've got, Carol, maybe you can leap in there if you remember specifically what the other ones at the west end were, since
One of them is attached to a street sign, and it just says, leash required. It means nothing. I mean, what does that mean? You have it in your pocket, you have it in your car. I think that we can better describe dog situation better than a sign that just says leash required.
Right.
I think it can be removed. Several of them belong to Audubon, and they're information signs, and I've called them and asked them if they'd like to remove their signs, and I haven't heard, or that I would remove their signs for them. I haven't heard back from them. I think they can be removed, especially in the wintertime.
I was going to say, one of the things we found, as I said, the upper right is Dyke Road. Lower left is, I think lower right is Belvedere in front of the Tides. Lower left, I believe, is Bel Air.
Right.
And then if you, go with a couple of the next screen, John, can you do that?
Yep. Can you see it okay?
I still see the same one. At least that might be what I'm looking at.
So, I'm scrolling it. That's interesting. Maybe it doesn't actively show up when I scroll it.
Let me see if I can scroll it at this end. Well, whatever. Even if we can't possibly do that, then those of us in the committee at least have seen, hello, Mike. Have the.
If I do it this way, it'll come up. There you go.
Okay. Yes, now we're moving on. We're starting at the west end and we went down. So there's Edgewood, where we have the green one is the Conservation Trust sign, which it has at pretty much the entrances that are going out through their property. So you can see the water quality one on the upper left. You can see the welcome sign farther back down the beach. Broadway, again, Conservation Trust, the welcome sign. Actually, that's not Broadway, that's Proctor. I take that back. I don't know how that got screwed up. And the next one down is Broadway. So and then we get to, what do you call it? If we go farther, we'll get to Jeffrey's Way. Jeffrey's Way is 3 separate pictures because you've got this, I think the first one in the upper right is the very end of the street. And no, it's the one halfway down where the handicap parking spot is. The one on the upper left is at the end of the street. So we have the added signage about no unloading trailers, et cetera, which is not found on any of the other entrances. And then at the bottom, you see the signs that are right down at the very end as you walk out on the beach. And interestingly, Carol and I, when we were looking at those signs, as we were standing there, a family came along to enter onto the beach from there, and we just looked like, mother, father, adult, daughter, and we just said, just out of curiosity, what's your reaction to these signs? And they all kind of said, don't like them, don't pay much attention to them, and they just consider them an eyesore. Just, destroying what is one of the most beautiful, view of one of the most beautiful beaches in Maine. So our conclusion, as we looked at all the different signs, and as you can see from looking at them, there's not very much consistency. It's sort of a cluttered look, confusing, not necessarily effective. I think that most people will not, picture yourself as a parent with a couple of kids, and you're dragging all the beach equipment that people drag out to the beach these days. How many people do we really think are stopping and reading these signs? In addition, much as we love the work that was done on the welcome sign, we're questioning whether putting everything on one sign detracts from people finding what they really need to know. For example, if you had, you're basically coming out for a dog walk. Are you able to quickly find the information you need that particularly pertains to what you're interested in doing right then and there? So we kind of want to throw out just possibilities for, I think this is something that's certainly not going to happen tonight, but something we need to think about some more. Can we come up with a way of having more cohesiveness in terms of the signs, the style of the signs, if nothing else? And also, there may be, in some entrances you have the drone sign, please don't use drones, and other entrances, I think there were a few that might have even had fireworks signs. Certainly, one or two had signs about where to find a bathroom, and that's important, I will admit. But if we can, and I learned something out of this whole process, because as we were looking at the welcome sign and those little grids up in the left corner, which I now know are called QR, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had no idea. This shows my age. I had computer expertise. I had no idea what those were. And once I learned, we figured, first of all, a lot of the people that come to, most people that come to the beach have their cell phone with them and are probably savvy about what those things are. And maybe we could reduce the amount of verbiage we have to put out there by simply having those up there that somebody can whip out their cell phone and quick, put it up against it and get the information onto their phone. That's one possible, use of that is more prevalent now and maybe works in this day and age. But there are some signs that are unnecessary. We want to simplify, trying to simplify verbiage on a sign and not have duplication of effort. For example, if we've already got information about the plovers elsewhere that need to be fairly, in a couple of places, I think, on the welcome sign. And ideally, we'd love to propose that we simply, have a consistent number of signs at entrances, and that we have, one thing, Conservation Trust, John, we like their sign from the standpoint of not necessarily that we felt it was necessary at every single entrance, but the style of it and the green pole it's even on was less obtrusive and kind of fit in with the environment, or, the landscape a little bit better. But trying to have maybe 2 poles, if we get everything onto 2 poles, we were thinking maybe one is something that, okay, here's all you need to know about dogs, and here's the information, here's the extra pooper bags that are available, the free pooper bags, and maybe that also includes information on, on a vertical sign, the top, farther up side, that talks about the plovers, one thing that deals with wildlife, so to speak, or dogs and wildlife, maybe another that speaks to, the water quality, which I know we've already talked, and you've pretty much got that one planned for next year. But one of the things too that we thought was important about this was to make signs adjustable to the season. There are certain, obviously the most busy time of the year on the beach is the summer, maybe Memorial Day to Labor Day. And we have different rules in regards to certain things there. Obviously, there are plover rules that are different from April through August. There are certainly dog rules that change. The water quality changes weekly, if not bi-weekly. Is there some way we can create signs that have the information that can be changed out easily enough so that, as John, you guys designed the put out the temporary sign over the dog sign this year that delineated exactly what people needed to know this summer. And then you took it off because we were starting, thank you for doing that, we were starting to get inquiries from a couple of people saying, well, that's the summer rules. I need to figure out what I can do now.
Yeah, I apologize. It was a little late getting them off.
Well, I mean, I think the concept, though, I think that demonstrates, I think the concept works well of having something that's more seasonally oriented, tagged towards what are the rules in effect for right now. And so people will know them, be able to find them easily and quickly. So this is, Carol, is there any other, of course, we've got the bulletin board now, which, by the way, as of, I think after this meeting, I'm going to go just take anything that's off on the bulletin board still and take it off and close that out because realistically nobody's walking by there looking for information there, and I'd rather, not have paper all get slightly round and curled up. But is there anybody, Carol, anything else that I haven't covered that we should add?
We talked about making all the signs consistent in size and in wording, because what seems to happen is whatever the cause is, the next sign that gets put up gets bigger than the last sign that was put there. It gets put in the front, and then the next sign that gets put up gets bigger than that sign. So we thought if we could, all the signs would be consistent, and if we had the ability to, whether they're on columns or not, to change them. Because what we found was, if there's anything that's constant, it's change. I mean, we can put up a sign, for this year, but next year it could be different. So that was what we were working at. And one of the other things is the welcoming sign that was done years ago was beautifully done. And they were very conscientious in that they turned the sign on the side instead of facing the people coming in, so it would not upset the people's view that were looking onto the beach. One of our thoughts was, instead of the sign being horizontal across like this, they have the sign be vertical and to face the people as they come in. We did nothing more than just try to brainstorm as we went down the beach. So those were the thoughts, I think.
And one other thought that when you were just saying that came to my mind, that you and I discussed a little bit, is we don't really know who gets to say who puts up what sign.
I know.
I mean, I don't know who's this is something we would need to do more research on, but I don't know who says, yeah, it's okay to put up, the welcome sign versus, okay, it's okay to put up the drone signs here versus it's okay. I think that's a basic question we need to look at. I'm not saying it's the beach advisory committees say so, but somebody, I presume, here in this town has to okay putting up signs, because otherwise we will have even more of a plethora of signs.
That's the question I had. Are there some signs that are up now that are none of our business? Like the yellowish congested signs that are bigger now, and we don't have any control over those, whether we like it or not, or
Jim, it turns out that there was a discussion at one of our prior meetings about what was done at Granite Point or Biddeford Pool, and the suggestion was maybe we could duplicate what they have done. And that's how those signs came about. So it really originated from the Beach Advisory Committee.
Okay, so those are our responsibility. Okay.
Yeah, and I would tell you that I think the signs are well done. They're obviously visible, and they catch your eye, and they
I'm just trying to say, if we wanted to make them more consistent with the other aspects of the signage, do we have a right to do that or not? And maybe we do, if no one's heard it.
I got the beach use agreement here. It's a good question. Thanks, Jim. But I've got the beach use agreement here. What it says is, the town shall make information readily available to public visitors to the beach and the backlot owners and their invitees designees regarding the restrictions of this section, such as by appropriate signage at public access points and parking areas, and by dissemination of information to residents, visitors, and/or commerce or tourism. It sounds to me like that's the only thing I found in it. If you can find, I've got the agreement here, right?
Yeah, that's with respect to the agreement, right, Mike? That's the information of the agreement, because I put up a drone sign,
Yeah. But no, it says that the town can set up signs. That's what it says. But I'm saying
talk about the agreement. Maybe misunderstood, but
that's part of the agreement. But
John, if you're talking about the drone signs, that was also the advisory committee.
okay, well,
we discussed it, and what I would suggest is that maybe what we can do is because I think the town is flexible on signs. I mean, there's nobody who wants to have, you walk down an alley or down an entrance, and it's just sign. So I think the discussion is good, and I think that the discussion with the town would be good, and I think it would be good for all. I think we should do it, and I think that we come to a meeting of the minds and be practical about it. I think all the suggestions are good.
When the original signs from the original committee was a communications subcommittee
Exactly.
that worked on the signs and came to the full beach advisory committee with a recommendation, and it was edited and what have you. There were changes, but there was something to work with initially, and I don't think we're going to, certainly we're not going to do it tonight. And a committee of 8 people working on it just doesn't make any sense, at least to me. So we have 3 people on the communications committee. It would seem to me that the thing to do is to get your ideas together and come up with a recommendation that we can address at our next meeting.
I think
A tiny challenge to that, the entire committee getting together, is that there are indeed 3 of us and only 2 of us are allowed to meet.
oh yeah, that's always the problem.
Well, yeah, but meeting or a Zoom meeting is different than exchanging emails and what have you.
Right, but it's just indeed more cumbersome. But I hear what you're saying. I'm just.
The unfortunate thing is state law that it's not.
I hear you. I hear you. I'm just pointing out a little bit of the challenges with a 3-person committee.
Right. Well, in any event, I think I'm hearing sort of a consensus that it's time, the idea of going forward and reviewing this and possibly suggesting changes pretty much has everybody's okay. Everybody shake hands, please.
The answer is just, Mike and I were down at the corner of Dyke Road and Kings Highway with the chief and a bunch of other people looking at the stop sign issue. And there was a young couple with a dog, and this is like September 15th. A young couple with a dog, and they stopped at the Dyke Road sign, the entrance, and looked at the sign, and then proceeded to try to go to the beach, and the chief yelled to them that you can't take a dog on the beach this time of year. So they actually looked at the sign.
Right.
And then, just, I guess they didn't read it, or they didn't care, whatever.
I think there's 2 issues there. You're right. There is making it as clear as possible so the people who have a particular issue in mind can find the answer quickly. But also, some people are going to look at it and just say, yeah, it doesn't really apply to me. I'm going to do what I want. Thank God the chief was there. We can only really deal with trying to make things as clear as possible. And, yeah, and John, I'd love if we, proceed forward on this, which I'm Carol, or should I volunteer you, or Luann? Yeah, I mean, we'll proceed away, try and get more very specific ideas together. You've worked with somebody on signage design and this, that, and the other in connection with the water quality, and we can.
Bethany Jordan, I highly recommend her. She's wonderful.
Okay,
I'll send you her contact info. Yeah.
That'd be great, because at some point, it goes far beyond our capabilities of how to figure out how would you redesign a sign, or what's involved, or how much cost would be involved, or anything. So
Bethany knows how to do minimum words and get the point across. And if it takes some kind of a graphic or something, she knows how to do it. She's excellent.
I think we need to talk with the town, or have a representative from the town to see how much money we have. How much money will be allotted to do the signage, because there's, if we do it, take it all down and start again, that's, I would assume, would be a significant expense.
Right.
Well, let's get the recommendation that what you'd like to have, and then we can, so I think we still need to discuss that amongst ourselves, and then we can proportion it by funds, and let's first see what you all suggested, what it looks like.
Okay.
So I think step one is the three of us need to commit to being, almost daily email, work it out, what are our priorities to show on the signs, and then come back in our next meeting, whenever that is, and say, this is what we think, and this is the priority, and we'll go on from there. True, false?
Sounds good.
And are you assuming, we did have the sign for water quality wrong. Oh, there it is, yeah. Are you okay with this? I mean, this is the sign, and then these tags will be hung on days in which there is a warning. There will be proper wording there.
I like the sign, John, but when we look at everything, I guess we'll say, do you think this is important enough to have a separate sign to delineate this? Should this hang from the bottom of the main sign? How many signs do we need? All that stuff needs to be worked out. I mean, it's a good sign. I like the bottom, but I think that's part of the discussion that we need to have and email back and forth, and then bring it to the meeting.
But my point is, this sign is being produced.
I know.
So we need you to stop that. I mean, if we're going to say we don't want it.
I can't tell you anything today, John. I can't tell you anything. I mean, obviously, we're not going to stop production if it's in the way. But if it's underway, but going forward, if this one's there, it may be a discussion of where do we hang this? Do we put the other sign above? Do we hang this directly below, but keep it on the same post? I don't know, John. That's something
This
we
is a
can't
sign
answer.
we all approved,
Right.
and it's a sign that the selectmen also approved.
Well, there you go then.
Yeah, I just wanted to make you aware of that. And again, I think it's important to have these hanging. This is what people are going to see, whether they read the sign or not. They're going to get used to the fact that this color means I shouldn't swim at the rivers. This color means I shouldn't swim at the beach.
Yep.
And that, I think, is critically important.
I agree.
John,
I
quick question.
disagree.
John, quick question. And again, I probably am not remembering what we discussed. Is this going to be at every beach entrance, or just at the entrances closest to where you've tested?
Every beach entrance.
Okay.
This is the status of the beach and the rivers, and it will be at every entrance, no matter where the testing was done. It's just reflecting the status of the testing.
Okay.
This sign went through a number of iterations and coordination with the health department and the town, and we did approve it.
And
We leave that sign alone. We know
this
that
sign
sign
is
is there.
people's health. I mean, this isn't dogs. This is this is important stuff.
John, I'm not saying this is a bad sign or that we need to eliminate it. We'll
I
take it
understand.
into consideration and this will be there, so therefore we will not cover swimming advisory on any other sign that we're going to talk about.
Perfect, sounds great. Good.
Possibly too, it forms somewhat of a model for particularly things like the dogs, where we want to have different, people be able to see what applies at this exact time of year. I mean,
Yeah, maybe you have tags you hang below that talks about
I was just going to say, you got little tags hanging here, so let's make dog tags.
right, right.
And how big is the sign? What are the dimensions of the sign?
Do I have it right? But I will send that to you.
Yeah, just email us.
Yep. I don't have it at the top of my head. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, let's, the last item on the agenda is discussion of the dog ordinance. Like 7 years ago, we had a subcommittee, and the subcommittee had subcommittees of their own. It was a difficult process. There were heated arguments, and some people decided to go on their own to the Board of Selectmen as opposed to dealing with us initially, and we wound up with a compromise. The question is, does the compromise really work? There have been a number of emails from Linda Hanna to Lori, and I don't mean to just cite her. There have been lots of other people who raised complaints. We've all heard it every meeting. The number of dogs loose without a leash in times when they're supposed to be leashed. There are people who are concerned about walking the beach because they don't want to be accosted by dogs. People getting thrown over because the dog not aggressive but just friendly, and 40, 50 pounds of a dog jumping on someone. And there are people who want to walk their dog on a leash and do not want to be disturbed by somebody else's dog. The problem, as I think I said to you in the email, is not so much the dogs, it's the owners. We have in the ordinance leash and voice control for some periods of the day. Most dogs do not pay attention to voice control. They're having fun. They're running the beach, and the owner calls them, and they don't respond. And I guess the basic question is the beach a dog park, or is it a people park? And we have enough people complaining that they're not saying no dogs on the beach. They're saying, come on, leash your dog, and let me enjoy walking on the beach. And that's sort of the essence of what Linda Hanna wrote. She said, I have a dog, the dog is leashed, and I go on the beach even in that period of time, this time of year, from 12 to 2 o'clock. All dogs are supposed to be leashed. She said, I go on the beach at 12:30 or so, and there were dogs running loose. And we've had that magnified when we come to the summertime. We do have a leash voice control for a period in the morning in the summer. And let me put out my suggestion, and then we can talk about it. And what I would ask, since I'm sure most of you want to have a comment or more than one comment on it, let's do it. Raise your hand. I'll recognize you. Hopefully in questions or voice their opinion. My suggestion is, one, let's make it simpler than it is now. I mean, we've got all of these stratas of when and where and what have you. So we've really got 2 times of the year. We've got the summer, and the dates are, we can manipulate them, let's say June 15th to September 15th. Let people bring their dogs on the beach from 6 to 7:30, and they can unleash them, supposedly on voice control, but they can unleash them. So they've got an hour and a half in the morning. And from 7:30 to 9 o'clock, all dogs have to be leashed, which gets people who don't want to be on the beach with unleashed dogs, but they still have a time in the morning that they can go on the beach. And from 9 o'clock until 6 o'clock, no dogs on the beach. Now, this is the June 15th to September 15th. And after 6 o'clock, dogs are leashed. That's the summertime. When we get to the off-season time, which should be something like the 16th of September to the 14th of June, 6 to 8 o'clock, leashed, unleashed, all other times leashed. So that when people are this time of year want to walk the beach at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they can walk the beach with their dog, but the dog has to be leashed. But we're still allowing the time for those people who want to take their dog on the beach, let them run loose. But when the time is limited, and the rest of the time is for people to walk, whether they're with the dog or not with the dog. That's my suggestion. And let's have a discussion. Who wants to go first? I don't see any hands. Go ahead.
My hand would be up. Richard, I think what we would like to know is exactly how many complaints and of what nature. And I've spoken with Linda personally a number of times, and I understand no one wants to be jumped on. And if you have a new dog, I have a new dog, but she's 9 years old. I don't want her jumped on either. Other than Linda, what are we hearing?
We hear it all summer.
Yeah, but that's not very quantifiable, Richard.
The number of violations where people were given a warning has increased. So we had 38 this year. That doesn't reflect the number of people. When I talk to Lori, one of the things the CSOs say, they see us coming and they go the other way. So that not everyone is given a warning, and you have to recognize that the CSOs do not have the authority to issue a summons. They can issue a warning, but the problem is, people say no. I'm not going to tell you my name, and many of them are not residents of Goose Rocks. I see you, Jen, and Kate had her hand up first, and I'll get to both of you. So I don't think we can quantify it. I think we know from the years that we've been here and the years we've been on the committee that the complaints just don't stop. And Kate, I know, walks her dogs usually in the evening and in the summertime, and there are dogs running loose, and it apparently Kate can talk to it, just about every time that she's on the beach.
say when I'm on the front and I'm able to see it. So you are quite right. I guess if I made an amendment to yours, I would back it up right to Labor Day weekend and not the 15th.
But the dates are not,
Saying,
yeah. Okay, Kate.
Well, to reply to your question, I know I have gotten just verbal comments from a number of people, a lot of people complaining about it, which didn't rise to the level of an email or something like that. They just, every time they've seen me, they commented on the fact that so many more dogs running loose on the beach. These are people, I know who live here or have recently come here. And personally, I've seen it, and I also have to say, as I mentioned in an email today, that much as I love the work that the CSOs do, I have never seen a CSO patrolling the east end of the beach in the evening hours when dogs are running all over Kingdom Come. And I do think, quite honestly, that it's time to review this whole situation. The work that was done 7 or 8 years ago was phenomenal. I wasn't really at all part of it. We had just barely moved here and hadn't quite moved here yet. But I think that we all have to acknowledge that the beach has changed. There has been much more intensive use of the beach. It's in many cases visitors who are not repeat visitors and people who've been coming here for a long time or renting here for a long time, as has been in the past, and who would be more familiar with the rules and also much more willing to observe them. I think we've got a problem both of are the ordinances we have in place right now the ones we really need to have in place. I personally think that while I recognize we used to have black labs. Granted, we've got little short-legged dogs that don't want water, don't want to be near water, love the beach, hate the water, don't necessarily need the exercise. Black lab owners for years, and I understand dogs needing to run, needing to be free to go in the water, chase a bumper, all of that. But I think it's the concept of voice control, to me, is pretty much a myth, unless you have a fully trained herding or hunting dog or a dog that's about to compete at Westminster. I find it very difficult to take the average pet owner's word for it. Oh, my dog's under voice control, because I've seen dogs, either owners are totally ignoring them and not, I saw that earlier this summer when a dog was heading right for a plover nest, and the owner was just like, paying no much attention. She was too busy chatting, even though her buddy who was closer to me said, "No, that's not my dog, but it's under voice control." No way. Just yesterday, we were walking on the beach, middle of the afternoon, and there was quite a number of people on the beach yesterday. It was a beautiful day, and obviously, as we know, the population is still staying higher this year. More people are staying around longer, and more people are moving to this area full time. But in any event, we were walking along, and a family with a, I'd say maybe 40-pound dog. She was very friendly, and came bopping up to us, which wasn't a problem for us. We like dogs. We didn't have ours with us, and we were happy to pet her. But she was bouncy, and her owners were trying to control her by voice. She sort of paid attention and sort of took off in the other direction. And when I observed, she was bouncing up on a woman who was sitting on a beach chair. And even though her owners were trying to call her back, and she finally came back, first it was after she had explored who was this woman there, and she clearly was not particularly delighted about having this dog attention. So I don't think to me, voice control is pretty much of a myth. And if we're going to have it at all, I could live certainly with the suggestion Richard made, that it be one narrow part of the day, early morning. I'm sorry, I certainly wouldn't work well with that, never being a morning person, but if that's when your dog needs to be off leash, keep it at a confined area. The other thing that I thought of, and I suggested, I think even way back when, but was, could we define a particular area of the beach where, and I've always thought the east end, because we tend to have fewer plover issues at the far east end than at the west end, but I would go to one end or the other of the beach so that there's an area where dogs could be off leash. Maybe even there you change, you restrict the hours, but it could be off leash running around, running in the water, having a high old time, getting the exercise they need. But if people want to walk the beach and not have to worry about being knocked over by a dog, and it doesn't even have to be a big, huge dog, because I've probably been taken out at the knees times with dogs that I've been walking when they're having a good time. And as again, I think voice control is even more of a myth at a place like the beach, where there's so many attractive smells and interesting people to check out and other dogs to check out. So even a dog that might appear to be under voice control in their own backyard or someplace forgets most of their training. So I guess I like the suggestion Richard made, at least of one of my issues was trying to back the no dogs on beach at all during the daytime rule up to September 15th, because September 30th, as we found this year, if you want to walk your dogs in the evening, you don't have much daylight left to walk the dogs. So it's a huge help backing it up to September 15th. But I'm really pretty much in favor of leashing a dog at all times.
So, first of all, thank you, Richard and Kate. And I think that the suggestions you made for the summer, the little modifications you made for that, I definitely am in support of. So I had a couple comments. One comment was, I was curious as to how much of the complaints are about people not following the rules as stated versus people following the rules and not liking them. For example, understandably, if you have your dog off leash during the day or in the evening, you're breaking the rules. If you have your dog running loose, I'm talking summer, before 8:30 in the morning, are we getting complaints about our rules as stated, is one thing. So that's one comment, because that's different. But I do, so the issue, it sounds like, is what happens in the off season. And I think what you talked about, Richard, is an interesting idea of making it a little bit more limited when dogs can run free. I guess I would request, since it gets dark later, that maybe the extended, if we do that route, the extended a little bit longer. And I definitely hear what people say about voice control. I mean, I had a dog who was terrible, and I did not ever let him off leash because he was terrible. And I have a dog now that actually I'm one of the few who he actually does come. But I get totally what you're saying. So I understand that. I also do think there needs to be some time when people can bring their dogs to, and they have to be a responsible owner. I mean, if you have a dog that picks fights, you should be fined if your dog attacks another dog. You should not be, or knock someone down. You should not allow your dog to loose. But there should be a time when people can allow their dogs, big dogs, to run and throw a ball for them and get exercise. I mean, that is part of the joy that I have gotten from my 27 years coming to Goose Beach. Is the joy of seeing my golden retriever with his ears flapping, the ball in his mouth, and he's a happy dog, and that makes me happy. So, and he needs it, and I need it. So I feel like it's good that we allow some time, and that with mornings, whatever, when dogs can run free. The last thing I want to mention is, Kate, you talked about the specific area of the beach, and just to throw it out there, in the winters, I am very lucky, and I've been going to Coronado, California, and they have a long beach like ours, and they have designated one end of it as dog beach, and dogs are never allowed the whole rest of the beach. Now, I'm not recommending that. If you live down the other end of the beach, it's nice to leave your dog to walk. But this one end of the beach is dog beach, and dogs are allowed to run free there. You don't have to go there if you don't want to. And if you don't want to see a dog or be near a dog, you would certainly not go there. But it is one option, and it works for there. So, just wanted to put that out there.
Where would we, at Goose Rocks, designate an area?
Dog beach, people own that property. I mean, there are houses there. You can't tell them now that your beach front's going to be a dog beach. I still think that's workable.
Well, that's the point, John. If you look at the 2.5 miles of our beach, where and we have the checkerboard in terms of private property, town property, town-owned beach. It gets
throwing out there that I've seen that.
Whatever we recommend, obviously, it has to go before the Board of Selectmen, and if they agree, then it has to go up for a vote in the May election. There'd be a warrant to amend the dog ordinance. So there, I'm not sure what the date is of for us to make a recommendation, but it's pretty early in 2021 that we would have to do it. And I mean, if there is some consensus, we could do it tonight, or we could do it at the next meeting. But it seems to me that it is time. As Kate said, the beach population has changed, and for example, this time of year, to say that those people who want to walk the beach with their dog, but want the dog leashed and do not want another dog approaching, that's unleashed. It's only a 2-hour window from 12 to 2. It's sort of unreasonable. And given the number of complaints that we had, granted, Joanne, we don't have a statistics. It's anecdotal, but we've all had it, and you yourself have seen it. So I think it's time to address the question of a dog park versus a people's park. And that doesn't mean eliminating the dogs. It means having them leashed. And I would tell you, I had an experience this summer. I've got a small 12-pound cockapoo, and it was not on the beach, but it was close to where I live, and there was a woman walking 2 dogs, one leashed and one unleashed, and she was close to her house. And the one that was unleashed decided it wanted to come and smell and what have you to my dog. My dog just doesn't like that. So she growled, and of course when she growled, then the other one growled, and the woman couldn't control the dog that was on the leash, but wanted to get involved, and she couldn't call the dog, or the dog didn't respond that was unleashed. And the husband came out and finally separated the dogs and got them semi under control. What was really nasty when I told him that the dog has to be on a leash, and this is a person who is he's not a resident, but he's a property owner at Goose Rocks, and it for a period of time the dog was probably 40-50 pounds, and my dog is 12 pounds, and I'm in between the two. So it was a situation that I don't want to have repeated, and I can imagine that it happens all too frequently when one dog doesn't want to be bothered with an unleashed dog, and the owner can't control it. And fortunately, we have not had any incidents of people being bitten, but there have been some in the past.
Richard, just a brief comment on that when you pointed out about a leashed dog being confronted by an unleashed dog and vice versa. I think it's well known in the dog world when you have one dog that is constrained and they're being confronted by another dog that's running free, you get into much more difficult situations with the constrained dog being defensive and growling and everything else, putting aside the size differences. And I've had that happen when I was a very small dog, not one of mine, the one that was even tinier, that I was babysitting. But there is a real difference between the dynamics of a dog that is on a leash versus a dog that is running free and has all the flexibility in the world to go after the leash dog differently. And the leash dog can be very defensive very quickly, even if it might otherwise be the kindest, nicest, cuddliest dog in the world. Normally, it feels threatened. And that's the dynamic we have.
I think whatever we decide, we haven't talked about enforcement at all, but it really needs to be enforced. I mean, no sense doing all this if we're not going to find ways to enforce it, particularly in the summer. The CSOs have to be scheduled for those fringe times when people are supposed to be off the beach or not on the beach, whatever, and make your assignments from 2 in the afternoon to 8 at night, some of them. And they've got to be able to do that. And if there's not adequate personnel, I guess that's one of the reasons why I asked how much money we collected in fines last summer. If we needed extra resources, they might be there. But I think it'd be hard to enforce it maybe in the non-summer months. But I think it just makes a whole joke of everything we're doing if we're not willing and ready and able and have the adequate resources to enforce it.
Well, I think first we need to have a dog ordinance that in terms of time is simple as opposed to what we have now. And granted, we do need to talk further with the town and with the chief about enforcement. It is obviously a problem with a 2.5 mile beach. There's just a lot of space to cover, and we can't have a CSO in every place on the beach, and the CSO isn't a police officer. So if there's an issue, they have to call the police. Let me, Mike first, and then John. I know you had your hand up, and then Carol.
I'm of the mind that we make the ordinances that we have work. And to that end, just hearing that, I have spent time talking to the people like Goose's Beach. And the last conversation I had today was today. I was trying to find out why it works at Goose's Beach. And it's not without incidents, but it works. So I'm trying to find out why. So one of the things that came up was, as I was talking, was they have a dog advisory group that gets trained. And these are all volunteers, and they wear vests and they patrol the beach, especially when the dogs are off leash in the morning, which is in the morning, and so forth. And they have an animal. If there's a problem over there, they have an animal control officer that they can call. They also have COs that work the beach on bicycles. They are a little bit different. The question I asked, they are a little bit different because the beach over there is, the houses are not right on the beach. There's the sidewalk and the road, and the houses are on the other side. So there is a difference. There's a difference there. But I asked how it worked, and the answer was that they patrol the beach and they get after people who are, if there's a violation, they remind them, and if they have to, they do get the COs to write a citation. If there's a real problem and the COs can't handle it, then as we just suggested, they call the police or the animal control officer. I wanted to talk to her, but I tried to get to her today, but I couldn't get to her. But she apparently does a great job and works with these volunteers. And I think Stu Barwise at one time was one of those. I'm not sure, but they have a lot of volunteers. And you got people over there in the morning, including the bushes and so forth, and they all walk the dogs and off the leash and so forth. And they have these dog advisory committee. So why don't we try to make the ordinance work? Why do we got to go? I'm just asked. I don't have a dog in the fight. I don't own a dog. Okay, I don't have a dog in the fight here. So, but I'm just saying, we've got the ordinance. We've got some issues. I don't think 38. Now, some people are saying there should have been more. I hear that, but I don't think that 38 complaints or whatever. Yeah, 38 complaints during the year of all the people who are walking dogs, whether on leash or off leash, I don't think that's a lot of complaints.
Well, the problem is the CSOs don't write up everyone who has a dog loose. And you know, those of us who live here, Mike, see it all the time. And it's a lot more than 38. And, you know, Gooch's Beach is a lot smaller than Goose Rocks.
I don't disagree. All I'm saying is they make it work.
Well, yeah, they make it work with volunteers. And they,
Well, dog owners have a dog in the fight, and that they might want to volunteer.
you know, a lot of times we're talking about people who are not residents of Goose Rocks.
We can talk that till the sheep come home, but there's enough people who would likely want to volunteer.
But you know, even if you're correct about that, and we got the volunteers, we still need to address what we have in this time of the year, and there's only a 2-hour window for people who want to walk their dog on a leash and do not want to be disturbed by dogs that are off leash, and that's the only window that is there. So John, Carol, and then Jeff, Jen. John.
Yeah, I agree. I like Mike's idea if we could get volunteers that would act as a community support to that. I took a shot at putting together what is currently at the, can you all see that? The beach regulation stuff? And so, but again, this was just looking, a Google search, just dog rules at these different beaches. It would need to be verified and looked at more carefully. As I understand it, Kennebunk is kind of where we are right now. This is the no dog window, if the beach has it. There are no dogs from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then they've got leash or voice control before 9 and leash mandatory after 5, and that's during the summer. And I think this is somewhat close to what you were saying. I do have a concern, Richard, with dividing that morning into 2 pieces. I think that's going to be unenforceable. You know, you can be off leash until this hour, then you've got an hour where you can be leashed. And I would suggest you just do voice control and leash in the morning, and you do leash after 5 outside the no dog window. And for them, as I understand it, it is voice control or leash. Leash is not mandatory for the rest of the year at the Kennebunk beaches. That's how I read what's on the web right now.
Well, John, the suggestion of breaking up in the morning in the summertime is exactly what's in our ordinance right now.
Well, I understand, and I wonder if how doable that is.
The mornings are working okay, I think, in the summer.
Yeah, and you know, Barbara Barwise, when she was here, she and Stan would walk their dogs on the beach in the morning, and Barbara attended most of our meetings. And when the issue came up with a complaint, the question to her was, how is it in the morning? And she said, there's no problem in the morning.
Well, that's good. That's good. But this is here. I'll share it around. These are the local beaches. And what I found is their rules. Most of them are very simple. But we'll send it around.
There's a mixture. I mean, you look at Wells and Gunkwit and York. They do not allow dogs without a leash. And
No voice command at all, right?
Yeah.
And if you look at Scarborough and it's all boys, the only time they demand a leash is 1 to 3 during the summer. So, you know, as you say, it's all over the place. But ours is by far the most complicated. It really shows that it was put together by a committee.
Good. This is
Michael, there are a couple of people before you, and I'll get to you. John, are you finished?
Yeah.
Okay, Carol.
Thank you very much, John, for doing that. I also reviewed some of the ordinances of the different beaches, and I found that every one of them is different. And I came to the conclusion because all of our beaches are different. We all have different uses. Gooch's Beach, you can see from one end to the other, so you can see your dog go from one end to the other. It's a short distance. They have no wildlife. They have just a clear beach. I do this very fearfully. And this is what I would not want for myself, but I think for our community, I'm going to put on the table for at least discussion that while dogs are on the beach, they're on leash at all times. I know that that is not popular. I'm just going to put it on the table. You can chew me out later, and I know there are many that will. The second thing we haven't ever talked about is the plovers. The plovers arrive here at the end of March, and the migratory birds leave here October 1st. An unleashed dog in a plover is a recipe for disaster. And ask Scarborough. They had that incident. And we, in the writing of the ordinance, the plovers, they have to be considered. And unfortunately, where at one time all the plovers were down at our west end, and we could just say we had a plover, protection area down here. The blue-winged birds have moved. They're in the east end, they're in the middle, and make it now very difficult. So I think that's something that has to be considered if we change the ordinance. And the third thing, I feel like genders. That's what I ideally would like for us to have for a beach and the dogs. But the dogs that are coming on the beach now, we don't know anything about. Years ago, when we had fewer people here, we knew all the people, we knew all the dogs. We don't know if these dogs have their rabies shots. We don't know what any kind of care they have. And the incidents, I know of 3 bad incidents that occurred, and the one where the young girl was walking her Cavalier and was attacked. The people left. The people left. They didn't know anything about, were these dogs sick? Did they have the rabies? And I think what I'd like the beach to be isn't what I've seen recently. And so there you go. You can all shoot me, but I'm putting it on the table. Yes, Jen, sorry. I've been shot before.
Let's see, I'm trying to think. The point I had was a while back. I guess I'm not sure I have much to add. I think it's always an issue with complaints. I think when Mike was talking and saying 38 complaints doesn't sound bad, and I know there's obviously more. But I also think that there can be a situation where if you're happy with something, you don't ever say to somebody, "Hey, I want you to know how much I like the dog ordinance," or just wanted to give you an email saying how well things are going. So you tend to only hear the people who are unhappy. And so there may be hundreds of people who are very happy with the way it's working, and a few people who are unhappy. And so I just want to make sure we're not being skewed by the squeaky wheels. And again, I'm not discounting. Obviously, when you have a situation like you just described, Carol, that is not good. That can happen. That's going to happen. That can happen anyway. But so there was that point. But I guess I would just reiterate. I feel strongly that mornings where we had how it's been working in the summers, I think it's working well, which is to have a small time period where dogs are allowed off leash. And if you are nervous about that, then you know that that's the time probably not to walk your dog. And because I think that people who are dog owners, they do need to be responsible, but there should be the ability for them to have at least some time when they can let their dogs play the ball around the water.
Well, that's why I suggested the time frame, and it would be pretty much consistent all year round. But Mike, and then
I'm good.
you're good. Joanne, did you have your hand up? No. Okay.
I just had a question that was just raised by, I think, something Jen said. When I was talking about the possibility of setting up a particular area, i.e. my suggestion was the farther east end, you raised, John, or whoever raised the point, which is well taken, that yes, we have a unique situation here as a result of the litigation where some parts of the beach, even down in that area, are private property. But then it just occurred to me, if we have an ordinance that says you can have your dog off leash in the morning under voice control, but it's not limited. You're allowing that dog to run all around private property anyway. Correct me? Am I wrong? How are we, you know?
It's a reserved area.
That's the point, is you're designating the area as a place, you're taking someone's private property and saying, we're gonna designate this as a spot where the dogs can only run and concentrate there. If I were a property owner there, I would not be happy. That's all.
It's the same thing can happen now. If I decide to take my dog, you know, if I still have a lamp and I kick it to that end, the town is now saying I can let that dog be off leash pretty much anywhere.
It's not the same, to me, to my mind, Kate, that's not the same thing as all, it's designating a chunk of properties and saying, here, you're dedicated off leash. I just don't see the equivalence, Kate.
Put that issue aside. Where could we designate an area at Goose Rocks? I mean, you say the east end is Sandpoint. You're going to designate that. I mean, John's question or comment about the owners there. They're not going to be happy. I know one in particular, Kate Nixon, would probably shoot all of us.
Just sit in front of her house and have 10 dogs off leash.
I'm not arguing. I agree the point is well taken that because of the outcome of the litigation and the beach use agreement, we do have a situation here that's different from, Gooch's or something like that, probably most other towns. It just occurred to me as we were talking through, I don't really, to me, you have the same problem if you have dogs under, quote, voice control, which basically means running loose, because very few dogs are really subject to voice control. And yet we're countenancing that happening at any place on the beach from 6 to 8 or whatever, or under 6 to 7:30 or whatever we do, or some people are suggesting any time in the morning hours. I don't understand. I see the same problem rising to some extent. Why are we the town countenancing so I basically think, I agree that dogs need exercise, but I have to say this is not a dog park, and I moved to the idea of it needs to be leashed at all times. And I'm not opposed to the idea of what Gooch's does, or the Kennebunk beaches have done, as a result of the issues that came up over there several years ago, of really creating this dog monitor program. I wouldn't have any problem with that here, but I think that, and I respect Jim's question too of enforcement here. And by the way, saying we have 38, it's not that we have 38 complaints. We had 38 formal warnings given. That's a big difference, because as I understood the chief saying at one of the previous meetings when we talked about enforcement issues, their basic philosophy is we try to educate first. So I bet you those warnings were not given out until more egregious activity happened. So 38 warnings is very different from the number of complaints that have been happening around this beach.
We don't know that. We don't know that.
Yeah, it's a good assumption.
We don't know that. I mean, we don't know it. So,
What is it we don't know, Mike?
look, I can go down and if there's a dog here and I don't like the dog, I can complain and so forth. But sometimes they're not, I've been around dogs and so forth, and there may be some friendly dogs, and so somebody doesn't like a friendly dog. All right? So somebody says, boy, that's a problem. And they call one of us. We've probably all gotten calls. I have too. Okay, and they call one of us. Well, did you complain to somebody? The answer is no, I'm talking to you. So how do we know?
Exactly. We don't have documentation. I agree with that.
Documentation. So
As Richard said, it's more anecdotal.
that's all I'm saying, is we don't have any idea.
Well, we do have an idea, Mike, because we've had the complaints for 8 years. We've had them from
How many?
nobody has calculated them, but we know.
That's my point.
But we also see the dogs on the beach. Yeah, when they're supposed to be, leashed. Okay, Joanne and then Jen, and then Carol.
Hey, think about being a magnet for all the dogs to come on the and run loose on the only part of the beach that they're allowed. That's the difference. You have a 2.5-mile beach that they can run all over the place. But if you say you're restricted to this, you're going to have all the dogs down here, and that's the difference. And honestly, we all know that I love dogs, and I don't like any of these restrictions. But to be honest with you, I wouldn't want the only place they could be free in front of my house. Because they would all be there. They would. I think as much as you're saying, let's decide what we're going to do and then we'll worry about enforcement, I don't think that's going to work. Richard, I love that you're going until 9 o'clock in the morning. That makes a lot more sense. People do not start arriving on the beach before 9 o'clock, so there's no point in having the dogs off any earlier. I'd love it if it went till 5 instead of the 6. During the winter, when it's cold in February, I walk my dog in February. I have to have her on the leash. There is nobody down there. No one.
Well, let's suppose I'm down there and Kate's down there and we have our dogs on a leash and your dog is unleashed.
Yep.
And your dog comes up and is somewhat aggressive. What, who's entitled to use the beach? You with your dog on leash, or Kate and me with our dog's leash?
All of the above, because the issue would be me allowing a dog that was somewhat aggressive to approach your dog.
Well, as I said before, it's the owner, not the dog.
I agree with you. I agree with you. And I can only speak to this beach since 1957, which there were times we were on the beach all summer long with the dogs, no issues, no problems. We're becoming so overregulated with so many rules, it's making me crazy.
So, Joanne, I don't have the same longevity that you do in the terms of the beach. Lived here for 15 years now, but I have 50 years of coming to the beach, and it is a different beach.
It absolutely is, and that makes me so sad. So sad.
And it's not just a number; it's also the people who don't care.
Yeah.
They don't care about the neighbor. They don't care about anyone else. It's just their enjoyment. Dan?
Sorry, quick point. Kate, you mentioned about sort of having no off time for dogs, but I guess I still feel like there's still a distinction we're making. Are we getting the complaints because people are breaking the existing rules, or are we getting complaints because of the rule people are following the existing rules and they don't like them? So because my perception has been that mornings, early mornings, and I take my dog out at 7 in the morning in the summer so that I can have him running around a little bit and I leash him by 7:30. I have not gotten the impression that that has been a major issue, that people, for the most part, that that's worked well. If you don't want to encounter an unleashed dog in the summer, then you don't go on the beach before 7:30 in the morning. And so my impression is that that has worked well, and to take that away seems very unfortunate.
I think what we have heard in terms of the morning, there is not an issue. It is after the dogs are allowed to come back on the beach. They're supposed to be leashed.
So that's the issue, is that we're talking that our rules, I mean, our summer rules seem basically okay. We could tweak hours or dates, but our summer rules, my hearing, are essentially okay.
I can't speak to the boarding rules, Jen, because
I'm out there almost every morning, and I have not been aware of a problem.
right, I'm not there in the morning, and my observations is really the after 6 and during the day sometimes. I mean, there have been people that have...
So that's enforcement. People are not following the rules. You're not supposed to have the dog on the beach during the day in the summer, or off leash in the evening. And people are not following the rules. That's not a problem with our So you know, if you break these rules, you're gonna make the rules worse later, so you need to follow.
The ordinance itself, in terms of the summer, other than manipulating the dates and maybe manipulating uh, the time in the morning and extending it another half an hour or so, they seem to be fine. And yes, it's enforcement. The winter ones are not so fine because the people who want to walk the beach without being disturbed by a dog only have that 2-hour window. And that is, and you know, there are people who live here and walk the beach every day and would prefer not to have another dog or a dog come up to them. And owners think, you know, my dog's friendly. Why are you, you know, why are you complaining? Carol?
A couple thoughts. We all use the beach and want the beach for different reasons. Some people want it for their dogs, some people want it to walk. I've seen people walk the beach in freezing cold snowstorms in January, and I think to myself, they're out there for their own sanity. You know, the decision I would make for myself, I have 2 dogs. I love my dogs surrounding the beach, but I think the decision needs to be made for the community. And the community isn't just us dog people. It's people that either are afraid of dogs, don't like dogs, or find it inconvenient for dogs. And I think whatever decision we make, we have to make it for the community. So I'm going to throw out another crazy idea. And, you know, the town has a lot of property. Okay? Kennebunk has a dog park. Gunwood has a dog park. Wells has a dog park. Kennebunkport does not have another place for dogs to run. Number 1. And I hadn't thought of this, and this really doesn't pertain to Goose Rock's Beach, but this is Kennebunk Conservation Trust has just purchased over 350 acres, which goes from Oak Ridge Road to Route 9. And I know that they are, and part of their vision is to make it dog friendly with an off-leash area. So maybe we can develop some other areas. I know I've spoken with Joanne Aspling. I've spoken conceptual-wise with the Animal Welfare Society about the need for a space for dogs to exercise, because we all know a good dog is one that's exercised, and they're interested. So maybe these are just thoughts that that our beach can't be the answer to everybody, and that we go beyond. That's it, and I'm done.
I don't think we could sell an alternate place for people to let their dogs run free. If you live at Goose Rocks, you rent at Goose Rocks, you have a parking sticker, and you drive up and park on Kings Highway, and you have a dog, you want to be able to take the dog on the beach.
That's all. I agree totally. On leash.
Well, that's the question, whether it's on leash or not. I think it would also be very difficult to get an amendment that did not include some window for the dogs to be euphemistically on voice control. But and that's what we had the warning, and I'm just saying extend that all year. We have that right now, Carol, in terms of the clovers. The state, the restrictions in terms of the 200 feet and what have you would still be there. I mean, how much of a problem have you had with the morning hour, which is 6 to 7:30?
I'm not sure, but if you say, Jim, the plovers are down by Janet's house, okay? They're supposed to be on leash, 200 feet away from a nesting area. How's that going to work? The dog's off leash.
Can I just interrupt 1 second? Is anyone raising their hand?
Yeah, no, hold on just a second, Joanne, I'll get to it's what the ordinance says right now, and generally we agree, or most of us agree, that the morning hours in the summer have not been problem, so there wouldn't be any difference, Carol. There would,
Be on leash, 200 feet away from the nesting club area.
well, no, they're allowed right now from 6 to 7:30 in the summer to be off leash.
But they still have to comply with the 200 feet from the any plover nest.
Yeah, they do, yes. And they're supposed to be on voice control, so that would not change what we have right now. And I don't think we could sell a change to the ordinance that totally required on leash 24 hours a day. You have to have some window. Again,
So can we have a subcommittee that does this? I mean, 'cause we're not going to solve this tonight, right?
And we haven't even listened to any community input.
We do have a hand up.
okay, Joanne, and then we can go to someone in the public.
I see all sides. Yeah, I know, that's why I'm getting texts.
Yeah, I'm getting text too.
Yeah, we need to call on people who are raising their hand.
Richard?
Did you have anything else? No, okay, David, who do we have?
I am unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, and could you just indicate where you live or where you have property?
I am happy to do that, and I'm not sure who pronounced my name, but you pronounced it impeccably. So thank you for the warm welcome. We are on Skyline Drive, 4 Skyline Drive. We have been homeowners for about 13 years, been coming to Goose Rocks for 22, 23 years. We do own a dog, Wally, who some of you may encounter from time to time. I think this has been a very thoughtful discussion, and thank you for the civility, because this can become a heated topic. I guess my question, I have a comment and a question. The comment is, enforcement was raised by someone earlier, and I really think this becomes very quickly an academic discussion without enforcement, because I observed all summer long, we would be on and off the beach at various points during the day, and I don't think it was a problem, really, but there were dogs on the beach at 2 o'clock in the afternoon or 5 o'clock before they were supposed to be there at 6. So, there's no real enforcement to my mind, of the ordinance. There were occasional times on the East End where a uniformed officer would come because somebody, I think, had called, and maybe the CSO wasn't able to be in the vicinity at that point. But my comment is that without enforcement, this is extremely academic. So I think that's important.
Amen.
Well, David, I think in the first place, we need to have a reasonably understandable ordinance, and ours is not easily understandable, and the signs are not conspicuous enough for people to see the gradations of times. So there are a couple of problems. Enforcement is and has been an issue, and it is something that we're going to have to work out with the town and with the chief of police. But in the first instance, we need to have an ordinance that is clear, that people can understand, and arguably the simplest thing would be to say either no dogs, period, or all dogs on the leash 24 hours a day. That's not going to work here. It's not going to be acceptable to some of the members of this committee. I'm sure it's not going to be acceptable to the Board of Selectmen. So we have to work out something that's reasonable and fair.
I agree with everything that you said, and I think that one of the things that actually makes the summer fairly simple, honestly, the whole breaking the year up into pieces and the plover, everything kind of makes it a little more complicated, but it is kind of simple that from 8:30 in the morning until 6 o'clock during the summer, you simply can't have dogs on the beach. That actually does simplify things. I do think some of the issues are folks not from Goose Rocks or not from the area or haven't been coming to the beach and they just don't understand the ordinance. So that's my comment. The question is really one, and it may simply be that you can refer me to somewhere else, but I'm curious about the process here because I think there's going to be the need for more substantial public comment, both from beachfront owners as well as backlot owners as well as others in Kennebunkport. And I'm just curious as to what role this group. I really have not interacted much with this group, to be quite honest. I'm glad I've had this chance tonight. Thank you for that. But just curious, kind of how does this work, and what role does the public then have in this going forward?
We would have a further discussion and a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen would then have it on their agenda and have a discussion as to whether or not they were in favor of the changes we recommend. And that would be open to the public. And then it would be, if they were in favor, it would be put on a warrant and it would be a further hearing where the public had input to whatever was being proposed, so that there are a number of steps where the public can interact. Probably more people would be in the audience, whether it's Zoom or in person, in a selectmen's meeting than in our meeting. But it's not something that's going to be done behind closed doors.
Great, and I just want to make two comments for the record. One is I am not in favor of any ordinance which prohibits off-leash at all times. I think that's just simply unworkable. Several of you commented on that. I just think it's a non-starter. And secondly, I would very much be in favor of extending the time in the morning from 8:30 to 9. Sometimes we go over to Gooch's Beach simply because it's too late for us to get on the beach, and so we literally make a drive over to Gooch's because they end at 9. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Dave, do you have any other hands up?
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you, and Ursula, could you give us your full name and where you
Ursula Weiser, and I live on Oak Ridge Road. My husband Phil and I are dog owners. We take our dog, as the previous caller David said, we do take our dog to Gooch's Beach often because the mornings at Goose Rocks is very restrictive. So go at 7:30. That's it. You have to get up pretty early in the morning to be able to take your dog off leash. Now, for the summer, I think that's fine and workable. For the off season, if I think Richard, you said that if some people would consider or want to be able to have more time without a dog's off leash in the off season, and that's fine. But as David said earlier, I think having no time for off leash dogs in the off season is unworkable. We're here all year round now for the last few years. We've been coming here for 30 years, and my husband's family's from here. We're here during the winter, and there are so few people on the beach that I think to be able to have some time off leash during the winter is not an encumbrance on other people. And, as Carol said, this beach is for the community. Yes, the dog owners are part of the community as well. So, and there's, a very, I think most people are very thoughtful and mindful, especially the year-round people. We adhere to the rules. To me, 38 complaints or warnings does not sound that large. I don't know what the complaints or warnings are for people that are not dog-related. Richard and other people, I think you mentioned that the beach has changed over the years. Yes, it has, for many reasons. And yes, the dogs have changed a little bit too. There are more people that are dog owners now. That's just a fact of life these days. More people own dogs
dogs and they are part of the family. So I think being able to take your dog and enjoy part of the Goose Rocks Beach is part of being able for everybody to access the beach. You know, I don't know what other kind of complaints that people get for Goose Rocks Beach. I see people encroaching on the dunes and putting their stuff and their canoes and whatever on the dunes. I don't think dogs are the only issue with the clover situation. I see people behaving badly all year round. I mean, not mostly, but there are always gaps and gaps. And so I think just focusing on that issue, that taking care of the dog issue is going to be the easiest get. I mean, I don't know. I think that everybody can share it. Everybody can have time off leash. Everybody can have some time, even in the off season, without dogs off leash. That's certainly fine. That can be expanded. But I think that everybody needs the opportunity to enjoy the beach with or without their dogs on leash or off leash. Thanks.
Thank you. Dave, anybody else? Any further comments from the committee? Jen?
Would you restate what we're proposing, what we're currently, what's our current status of the proposal?
What I proposed?
Dog ordinance, yeah. So we've been kind of bouncing off that. I just need to hear.
Well, that was for purpose of discussion, and what it was from June 15th to September 15th, 6 to 7:30 leash off leash, 7:30 to 9 leashed, from 9 to 6 no dogs on the beach, after 6 leashed, and from the 16th of September to the 14th of June, 6 to 8 a.m. Leash or voice, and all of the times leashed. So that it has a window for unleashed dogs, both summer and winter, and periods where dogs would be leashed. Right now in the winter time, the dogs unleashed have the majority of the time of the day. For 24 hours, the people who don't want to be on the beach with an unleashed dog only have 2 hours.
Could you do it from 6 to noon off season unleashed, and then noon after leashed? It gives a little more time for off leash.
Well,
That is exactly what I was thinking. Exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
That way, in the mornings, the dogs can be down there off leash. You want to take a walk, you do it from noon on. And then, Richard, I would ask that you would consider going off the beach at 5 rather than 6. And I would ask that you back that up to Labor Day instead of 9:15. And in the winter, I don't know why you want us off the beach at 8. Well, if we go with the noon, that's great. But unleashed until 8 when it's 9 in the summer. You know what I'm saying? I don't like your hours.
you know, okay, I got it, Joanne.
All right.
all of the hours and the dates are up for discussion.
All right, where are you going? Should we grab it and try to solve this tonight? Should we do a smaller subcommittee like last time?
That's fine, and I think that's what we have to do, and come up with a proposal. Let's just do a show of hands that the members of the committee who think we have to do some change, no matter what it is, some change to the ordinance. Jim, are you?
Yeah, raise your hand.
Fine.
Okay. the ordinance the way it is?
I do.
Pardon me?
I do.
Yeah, okay. So, there are 7 of us who think that there needs to be some change, whatever that change is. So, who wants to be on the committee?
I should trouble.
Is there a balance? Is there a balance there? I think there is. I think there is a balance there.
I said, oh, Lord, the woman had the courage to do this.
Yeah, no,
Okay, so we have Harold, Paige, Joanne, and Jen who are volunteering to put something together, and it will have to be. Mike, do you know what the date is for passing something that would go on a warrant?
I think it's either late March or early April. You're talking about the June voting.
Right.
Yeah. So it's either late March or early April. I'm not sure exactly.
Okay.
That should be fine for this. I'll get the answer for you, but I think that's what it is. So that means that you'd have to get a recommendation to the selectmen, and then the selectmen, we would have to have a public, 2 weeks for a public hearing and so forth. So you need to look at that timing, and I'll get back to you on that date. I'll get to you tomorrow.
Yeah, it probably is January. Yeah.
Should be said. We have to get the town warrant in, is what I was referring to. Yeah.
Right. But there were things that discussions and hearings beforehand, and us making a recommendation. So
Let me find out, and I'll back it up, and I'll let you know.
okay, great. So,
I have a question regarding this. There are 4 of us. We have to do this by email, or we can have to sit down.
you can't have a sit down.
Well, isn't it different because this is an ad hoc committee? Because I mean, last time this went through, we didn't have a public hearing for every small meeting, did we?
No, the state law says a group of 3 or more members of the committee requires a public notice. So, I mean, we could have a public notice, but then the notice would be for the public to attend.
how do we get information from the public? I'd like to hear what the public has to say. How do we keep that?
Well, I mean, right now, it was advertised for this meeting that we were going to discuss the dog ordinance, and if there's a recommendation from the committee from the subcommittee that the committee wants to consider, it'll be on the agenda, and the public will have an opportunity to discuss it.
Can we do group emails, or is that not allowed?
Oh yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay, so we could have a group email with the 4 of us discussing things, and then hold a meeting.
Right, but
was open.
what you can't have is a Zoom meeting. Because right now that's the only way we have meetings. So you can't have a Zoom meeting. But
You also have to know that your emails are subject to freedom of information.
Fair enough.
yeah, well, that's why most
Your email.
We should be nice, huh?
that's why most of us have a separate email account for the committee. And if you don't have one, you should actually set one up. That's for those of us that when we first were elected to the committee, we set up separate emails. So if somebody wants to see my emails related to the beach advisory committee, they're all saved. I don't trash any of them, but they're in one email account. They don't get to my personal emails.
Well, Hillary's server, don't worry about it.
Now, wait a second, no politics.
Please, go there, Jim.
Okay, so let's talk about a
is.
We're gonna have it before that, I think.
I think so too.
You're gonna discuss it as a group.
Well, we're in the middle of October. We have Thanksgiving and Christmas time period. So
I have to say, this year, Thanksgiving and Christmas are not going to be quite as all-consuming as they have been in
no,
other
but
years.
it's I'm not sure whether we have. Well, tell me, the four of you. Do you think you're going to get together and talk about this?
How long is it gonna take, ladies? I mean, it's gonna take,
I mean, it's not, there's always, I mean, from what we're sounding like, I don't think this is gonna, I think we're already fairly close.
aren't we? I mean, do you see anything if we agree to take it to noon and, if we put it to 5 o'clock, do you see something else you want to do?
The Labor Day thing.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, then move it to Labor Day. Anything
Yeah,
else?
we got it done.
I got no problem with any of those.
I'd like to see a recommendation on enforcement.
Yeah.
I think it needs to be changed. I think it needs to be changed. It needs to be, if they weren't thinking about it before, they need to be, the CSLs need to be rescheduled for the key times when things will be happening.
I
I think we need to get an email chain going, Richard, if it, put the proposal together with those caveats, and then let's talk about enforcement, do that through email, and then set up another meeting, we can get the public input.
Well, the enforcement issue, I think first issue is to get an ordinance that is enforceable, that is not difficult to understand, and the question of enforcement is going to be a dialogue with the chief and the town manager, and that is going to have to be afterwards. We've had
Set the parameters for that.
well, we've had the discussions, but you know they have to the chief in particular has to be a party to it and to a discussion, and it has to be something that's workable. I mean, this is a royal pain in the butt to the police department. This whole issue. So, because they hear arguments from all of us about enforcement, lack of enforcement. Why aren't you giving more summonses? What have you? And they hear it every year. So we have to have
The idea, we can discuss the idea of community volunteers like they do at Goose. And I think that's a really interesting, I think it's a good concept.
it's a good concept, but where are you going to get the volunteers?
From the,
I guess if we spread the word around to dog owners and said, hey,
that's not word, that's not
yeah, we can figure that out.
because you're worried about getting volunteers.
Well, I'm not precluding it. I'm just saying I'm not sure that at Goose Rocks you have the same situation you have at Gooch's Beach.
You don't, but you've got 4 people that think we can get volunteers, David, Richards, let's just move ahead with the thought.
And that came out of the whole episode a couple of years ago. Some people wanted to ban dogs entirely from all the Kennebunk beaches. Remember, I went to some of the hearings. I'm sure some of all of us did. So that was the genesis of that, the dog monitors program, to keep the pooches on gooches. I'm not saying I can guarantee we have the same level of interest here, but I think it's something worth at least considering and looking at.
Good, I would agree.
Okay, let's get an ordinance in place before, and not preclude volunteers, but also a dialogue with the manager and the chief.
Okay, so are we going to aim for a meeting in November? And we have to, of course, look at availability of Dave and the Zoom and capability and all that.
Well, what about sometime in December? Jen, you could participate, but not vote.
Wait, what, me?
Oh, no, wait a second. If we're Zoom meeting, if we're Zoom meeting and they continue to allow the Zoom meetings, then yes, you can vote from wherever you are.
Because even last year before COVID, I wasn't told I couldn't vote when I called in.
You couldn't, you couldn't, the way the state law is, you have to be present.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Whatever meeting we didn't have any voting issues.
I guess not, yeah. Anyway, it doesn't matter because hopefully we'll still be on Zoom because I don't think COVID's going away anytime soon. So I think we'll still be on Zoom.
Well, it's the emergency order from the governor, and I guess if she removes the emergency order, you could still do the Zoom for 30 days. But right now, it is meetings will be on Zoom. So yes, you can vote
So
for
they stayed that way
wherever
for a
you
while.
are. Okay. What about sometime in middle December, early middle December?
That works. So we need one before January.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm gonna have time to respond, so yeah.
If we need to tweak the thing from the group meeting, we need a little time. So let's say the second week in December, not too close to Christmas, not too much on the heels of Thanksgiving.
Well, we had
14th,
Now, can you look at that?
Monday the 14th.
well, wait a second. We have to get the Dave Powers and Mike to have the time, and we can't be in conflict with any of the other towns.
Of course, but let's look at that.
Look at the middle of December.
There you go.
Dave, could you look at the calendar while we're on?
I could begin
One at a time. One at a time, please. Dave.
I can personally do it. I can't speak for the town. I have other meetings out.
Please don't wait and find out.
And am I assuming that we're going to try at this meeting to have both Lori and the chief involved?
I can ask. I'm not sure whether it's necessary to have them involved.
Depends on where we get with enforcement thoughts.
Yeah.
Well, as I said, I think the discussion on enforcement is after we have an order.
I don't understand that. We're gonna have an ordinance, it's gonna have to be enforced. Why does it matter what the ordinance is? Whether we're gonna discuss that enforcement?
Yeah.
I think we just have to have a simpler ordinance, and we have to have
I agree. We're working to a simple ordinance, but it's still gonna have to
The fourth time you will have a proposal for a simpler ordinance by that meeting period. And we will also have some recommendations on what we feel might be a help in enforcement.
perfect.
Understanding we are not the final word and that we need their input, but we are an advisory committee and perhaps we'll make an advice on that one too.
but we could see whether we can get the chief and
If we can, that's fine.
okay, Dave, do you looking at the calendar for December? What you can do? What dates? The second. That's it.
You looking just at Mondays, Dave?
What about
Populate its calendar out that far. So I have nothing to say about Lori's availability, the chief's availability, or conflicting meetings that might be scheduled.
right? But I'm just
I'm available. Michael is not available on the 14th. He's available on the 7th and the 21st if you're looking at Mondays.
well. It doesn't have to be just Mondays. So let's say we look at the 15th.
You got growth planning, you got planning board, you got select.
You got a lot of people, Richard. You need to do this beyond just Dave.
The selectmen meetings are second and fourth Thursdays of the month. Planning board meetings are first and third Wednesdays of the month. Growth planning has been inconsistent, but they tend to be first and third Tuesdays of the month.
Okay.
Lots of unknowns, lots of
Dave, I mean, in the normal course, I would ask Arlene to give us a couple of dates.
Right.
So why don't I do that, a couple of dates in the middle of December, and she will check whether there's a conflict with other boards and your availability.
Perfect.
Okay. All righty. Anything else anyone wants to discuss? Any hands up, Dave?
I need to bring up just one quick thing, only because I promised somebody that I would bring it up and I forgot until right now. And that is just, I did have a complaint somebody said about horses and the poop on the beach, on the horses. And I was just promised I'd bring that up. That when the horses go on the beach, there's a lot of very large poop on the beach left over.
That's because the horses are on leashes.
Exactly. So,
But you're right. We've seen it down this end too, and every now and then I talk to Carol and Bob about it. And when I talked to one of the people, and he started giving me a big lecture about how we pollute the land with our septic systems. I said, we've had sewers here for a decade. They refused to pick it up.
Well, they're required, I believe there is an ordinance that allows them on the beach. They do need to clean up. I would tell you that if you want to clean it up, they're great for roses.
I know.
Maybe that's why my beach roses refuse to grow. They don't have any horse poop.
Okay, anything else? A motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Everybody in favor? Okay, stay well, stay safe.